They say love is sweet until it's the reason you lose everything. My name is Adaobi, and this is the story I never thought I'd tell. I grew up in the chaos and beauty of Lagos, where 1 minute you're dodging down for bosses, and the next you're walking past men in Bentleys that smell like money. My life was simple, hard, but simple. I was a final year student at the University of Lagos, studying mass communication. I sold Ankara fabrics on Instagram to pay rent and keep my younger sister in school. Life didn't give me options, just battles. I lived in a self-contained apartment in Yaba. Nothing fancy, 1 room, 1 bathroom, 1 gas cooker, and a cracked mirror my mother gave me when I moved to the city. That mirror had seen my pain, my hunger, my tears, my prayers. So many nights I looked into it and said, God, please, just send me a helper, just one person who won't use me, lie to me, or break me. And then Zikora came. I met him at a tech networking event I wasn't even supposed to attend. My friend Amaka begged me to follow her. Just dress fine, she said. Men with real money go fool that place. Zikora wasn't the flashiest man in the room. In fact, he was calm, confident. Black jeans, white shirt, silver chain. But the way he looked at me, like he already knew me, like he had been waiting, he walked up to me and smiled. You don't belong here, he said. I blinked. Excuse me? I mean that as a compliment. You look like the reason this room exists, not someone just walking through it. It sounds cheesy now, I know, but in that moment I melted. He offered me wine. We talked about tech, art, books, and strangely, spirituality. He told me he was the founder of a booming fintech startup. ZPay, he called it. A digital platform with investments in Kenya, Ghana, and Dubai. His voice, deep and smooth. His perfume, Jesus. I remember that scent like it's burned into my lungs. He asked for my number. The next day, a black Prado Jeep stopped in front of my apartment. The driver said, Madam, Oga say make I carry you go spa. Everything done paid. I hadn't even replied to his text yet. That's how it started. Dates turned to gifts. Gifts turned to expensive trips. In just 2 months, Zikora changed my life. He paid my rent for the year, bought me a new iPhone, helped me launch my Ankara website. I told Amaka, this is it. This is real love. I don't know what I did to deserve him. But she wasn't smiling. She said, babe, you too don't fall. I laughed it off. I wanted to believe she was just jealous. Maybe she was. Or maybe she knew something I didn't. Zikora never rushed me. In fact, he seemed gentle, respectful, sometimes too respectful. He didn't even ask for sex. Let's do everything on your own time, he would say. I thought it meant he was patient, caring. Now I know better. The first red flag came during a weekend at his Banana Island mansion. It was our 3rd time there. The house, straight out of a dream. Glass walls, gold sink, smart lighting that responded to voice commands. I felt like Cinderella without the midnight deadline. That Saturday, I was on my period. I told him and he just nodded. Don't worry, love. Make yourself comfortable. I went to the bathroom, cleaned up, and disposed of my used pad properly. Double wrapped and dropped in the covered bin under the sink. About 15 minutes later, I came out, and the bin was gone. I asked his cleaner. She froze, avoided eye contact, then whispered, Oga say make I no touch am. He carry am himself. Chills ran down my spine. Why would a billionaire carry a used pad by himself? But then he walked in like nothing happened. He kissed me on the forehead, asked if I wanted Chinese or jollof rice, and turned on Netflix. I pushed the thought aside. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe he's just clean. If only I knew. Over the next week, strange things began to happen. My sleep was disturbed. Every night, I would jolt awake at 3 a.m., my heart pounding. My room would feel heavy, like someone else was breathing beside me. I check my phone and see missed calls from unknown numbers, all around 3:03 a.m. My business started collapsing. Orders that were paid for suddenly got cancelled. Clients ghosted me. The same Instagram algorithm that once pushed my Ankara ads to thousands suddenly stopped showing me to anyone. And me, I was tired all the time, weak, like my soul was leaking out of me bit by bit. Then the dream started. In the first one, I saw myself standing in front of a giant mirror. My reflection smiled at me and then bled from the eyes. In the second, I was naked in a forest, surrounded by snakes. Zikora stood in the middle, holding a red cloth, chanting words I couldn't understand. I woke up screaming. I tried to tell him. I told Zikora everything. He pulled me close, stroked my hair, and said, "It's probably stress. Don't worry, love. I'll call a therapist for you. I got you." But his eyes looked amused, like he knew something I didn't. A few days later, a message popped up on my phone, Instagram, from a handle called Adaobi slayed you. "Hi, I know this is random, but are you dating Zikora?" I stared at the screen. "Who's asking?" The reply came instantly. "You need to leave. He did the same thing to me, and I think he used your pad." My throat went dry. I called her immediately. The girl, maybe 24, light-skinned, pretty, told me everything. She said she dated Zikora last year. Same story, gifts, trips. Then suddenly she fell sick. Her face broke out. She lost her modeling contract. Her aunt took her to a spiritual woman in Abeokuta who told her someone had used her menstrual pad for rituals. "He collects your blood. That's your essence. That's your power," she said. "He doesn't need sex. He needs your flow. It binds your spirit to his wealth." I wanted to vomit. I checked my calendar. First time I slept at his house was the week I was on my period. Every visit after that aligned perfectly with my menstrual cycle. It wasn't love, it was calculation. I collapsed on my floor. My walls started spinning. My body went cold. In that moment, everything I thought was love became fear. My helper was a hunter, and I was the prey. When you give a man your heart, you never expect him to take your blood and use it to tie your soul. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling as everything fell into place. The dates, the gifts, the dreams, the sudden collapse of my life. It wasn't coincidence. It was a setup, a ritual, a betrayal deeper than anything I'd ever known. Zikora, the man I once thought was sent by God, was the devil wearing designer clothes. By morning, I couldn't move. My body felt like lead. My mouth was dry, my lips cracked. I had no appetite, no strength. My phone rang all day. Zikora called, Amaka called, clients called. I ignored them all. That same evening, I looked in the mirror, and for the first time in my life, I didn't recognize the person staring back. My eyes were sunken, my skin dull. There was a darkness around me, not physical, but something that clung to my spirit like smoke. I knew I had to do something. I went to church the next day. The pastor laid hands on me, prayed for over 30 minutes, but I still felt the weight. He said, "Sister, there is something demonic tying your destiny down. This isn't ordinary." I already knew. So I made a decision. I packed a small bag and took the next available night bus to my mother's village in Enugu. I didn't tell anyone. Not Amaka, not Zikora, nobody. The journey was long and quiet. As the bus rumbled through the night, I felt like I was leaving behind not just a city, but a version of myself that no longer existed. When I arrived in the village, my mother gasped. She hadn't seen me in 6 months, but now I looked like I'd been to war, thin, pale, and trembling. She didn't ask many questions, just hugged me, cried, and made me pepper soup. That night, I told her everything, from the day I met Zikora to the moment I learned what he really did. She listened in silence, and then she said one word, Nuam, we must go and see Mama Ogidi. Mama Ogidi was the oldest priestess in our clan, a small, bent woman with skin like tree bark and eyes that glowed like hot coals. She lived deep in the forest near the foot of the hill where the river spirits were said to sing at midnight. We arrived at her hut just before sunset. She was already waiting outside. She hadn't been told anything, but when she looked at me, she nodded. They've taken something from you, she said, something sacred, and if you don't act fast, you won't make it past the next full moon. I felt my knees weaken. She led me inside and began her reading. Cowries, kola nuts, palm oil, fire. She muttered to the spirits in a language older than Igbo. Her voice changed, deeper, fuller, and her eyes rolled back. Then she said it plainly. He used your menstrual blood to tie his wealth to your life force. Every time his account grows, your spirit shrinks. It is a blood for power ritual, and he has done it more than once. I broke down. I cried so hard my chest hurt. But Mama Ogidi wasn't moved. She handed me a calabash filled with bitter herbs and charcoal water. Drink. You must be cleansed inside before we can fight outside. I drank. It burned. I vomited. I screamed. Then the cleansing began. For 3 days, I was kept in isolation. No phone, no mirror, no visitors, only water, prayers, chants, and bitter roots rubbed on my body. At night, I had visions. In one dream, I was chained in a golden room. Zikora sat on a throne made of bones, counting money with blood-stained hands. Every time he smiled, I screamed in pain. In another, I stood at a river bank. My pad floated in the water, wrapped in red cloth. A hand reached down and tried to grab it, but a huge snake came out and bit the hand clean off. I woke up drenched in sweat. The final dream was the most terrifying. Zikora came to me. Not in a dream, but in spirit. He appeared at the edge of the forest hut where I was lying on a mat. He wasn't smiling anymore. His face was pale, sick, panicked. He said, Adaobi, please stop. Don't take this away from me. You don't understand what I've been through. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Then a bright light appeared behind him. A woman, tall, radiant, with glowing white eyes, touched my forehead. Fear not, she whispered. He has no more power here. When I woke up, the first thing I noticed was peace. That morning, Mama Ogidi said it was time for the final ritual. We went to the river. She brought a live chicken, red oil, white cloth, and a carving of my face she had made from wood. She placed everything on a flat stone and began to chant. I was told to strip and enter the water. As soon as I stepped in, I felt something lift off me. Heavy, invisible, but real. She threw the carving into the water and shouted, Spirit of Zikora, your bond is broken. From now on, your wealth shall drain like the blood you stole. Lightning flashed. The chicken screamed, and just like that, it was over. The moment I left that river, I knew I had taken my power back. 3 days later, I returned to Lagos. I was different, calm, clear, unshaken. I turned on my phone for the first time in over a week. The first headline I saw was on Twitter. Breaking: Zikora, founder of ZPay, collapses at investors' conference, taken to psychiatric hospital after speaking in tongues. Comments flooded the timeline. Is this jazz? Another billionaire goes mad. God abeg, who dey behind this one? I just smiled. Zikora was never seen in public again. Rumors flew that he had lost his mind completely. Others said he started walking the streets barefoot, muttering strange things. The company removed him as CEO, and his assets were quietly frozen. As for me, I told my story online, not for clout, but as a warning. I created a safe space for young women to share their experiences with spiritual abuse, rituals, and betrayal. My story went viral. I was invited to radio shows, podcasts. Women from across the country reached out to thank me. But I always told them, don't thank me. Just don't ignore the signs. Your blood is sacred. Your essence is not for cheap men in shiny cars. Some people chase wealth with their sweat. Others chase it with blood. But every shortcut has a price, and eventually, the blood speaks. The first time I walked back into my apartment in Yaba after the cleansing, I stood by the door for 5 full minutes, just breathing. The air felt lighter, the walls didn't whisper, the mirror didn't carry shadows. It was the same apartment, but I wasn't the same woman. I'd crossed fire and survived. Amaka cried when she saw me. I thought you were dead, she said. I went to your house. Your phone was off. You vanished. I hugged her, and for the first time since all of this began, I told her the full truth. She stared at me like I was telling a horror movie. When I finished, she was silent for a while. Then she whispered, "So all this time, he wasn't loving you. He was using you." I nodded, and suddenly her face changed. "Ada, I think he tried it with me too." Turns out, Zikora had messaged her once before. Smooth DM told her she looked different from other girls, but Amaka was too street smart. She never replied. How many girls had he done this to? How many of us had suffered silently, thinking we were crazy, unlucky, or cursed, when in truth we were prey in a billionaire's ritual game? That question haunted me. So I did something crazy. I made a video. It was simple, just me, sitting by my bed, no makeup, no filter. I looked straight into the camera and said, if you've ever dated a man who seemed too good to be true, if your life suddenly went downhill after meeting him, if you ever felt drained, broken, lost for no reason, this message is for you. And I told my story, everything, from the day I met Zikora, to the pad, to the spiritual attack, to the ritual, to the cleansing. I didn't mention his name directly, but the people who needed to know knew. The video hit 2 million views in less than a week. Comments flooded in. This happened to my cousin in Port Harcourt. Same story. My ex-boyfriend used to collect my used pads and say it was for disposal. I used to think this was just old wives' tales. Now I believe. DMs flooded in too. Over 100 women, sharing their pain. Some didn't survive. One girl said her sister died mysteriously after dating a man who always asked for her used tissue. Another girl went blind for 3 months after sleeping with a man who insisted on raw sex only during her period. It was a pattern, a plague, a hidden epidemic. So I started a platform. I called it She Guards, a safe space for women to talk, heal, and learn about spiritual awareness, emotional boundaries, and sacred energy protection. We held online Zoom gatherings, invited therapists, traditional healers, even pastors and imams. We taught young women about their power and the dangers of sharing it with people who don't deserve it. One night, while doing a live Q&A session, a comment popped up on the screen. Username, Zikora was my brother. I froze. The message said, he's still alive, but not really. He talks to the walls. He hasn't eaten solid food in weeks. We don't know what happened. but he keeps saying one name, Adaobi. The live chat went silent. I just sat there, staring. I didn't feel joy or revenge or satisfaction, just sadness, because a part of me once loved him, even if it was a lie. A few months later, I received a parcel, no return address. Inside was a red cloth and my used pad, wrapped exactly the way I saw it in the dream, but untouched, returned. There was a note. The bond is broken. You are free, but never forget. You were chosen because you glowed. Protect that glow. I burned the cloth, buried the pad, and cried. Not tears of fear, tears of freedom. Today, I'm not the same girl who cried into her cracked mirror, begging for a helper. I am the helper. I speak in universities. I counsel girls. I teach them that not every man who smiles is harmless, that not all gifts are free, that spiritual battles don't always come with thunder. Sometimes they wear cologne and carry a bouquet. And I teach them this one rule. Your blood is sacred. Your energy is divine. Guard it. Protect it. Because once it's stolen, it takes a war to get it back. Sometimes I still get messages, women thanking me, others asking for help, a few doubting the story entirely. That's okay, not everyone will believe until it happens to them. But me, I survived, and I'm telling you now, if something feels off, it probably is. If you feel drained after being with someone, that's not love, that's a signal. Don't ignore it. Don't silence your spirit. Because if I had listened earlier, maybe I wouldn't have gone through hell to find heaven again. So the next time a billionaire slides into your DMs, ask yourself one question. Does he want your heart or your blood? Pause. I'm Adaobi, and this was my story.